يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين هم يراءون ويمنعون الماعون صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على رسول الله وآله الأطهار على رسول الله وآله الأبرار
ما شاء الله ما صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
Welcome everybody. Alhamdulillah. We got today's session, which is all about parents. How do you cope when your child is in stress? This is the first session we're having. Inshallah, we'll be having more sessions like this, which will cover the stress, other types of the stresses. Today we're going to focus mainly on the exam stress. But stress is stress. It could be anything. It could be stress about exams. It could be stress at school. It could be other issues the children are facing. We know, we're running madrasa, we know that the young generation nowadays, they have lots and lots of mental issues. Especially in this country, when we are trying to follow Islam, the religion, and the message we get from madrasa and at home. And when they go to school, they get different messages. And it can be very confusing for the children. And inshallah, we'll be running those kind of stresses, the sessions, how do we deal with it, and all those. And I'm very glad, I'm very proud as well that my daughter, who has done masters in psychology, and she's currently working in a psychology department in a hospital in Birmingham. She's been working for 3 years. So I'll pass it on to her. If you have, she will do the presentation first, and at the end you will have chance to ask questions, and inshallah we'll try our best to answer those questions. And if is there a barrier of English language, then we have Brother Karar who can interpret in Dari and Urdu as well, inshallah. For Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Allah.
Alaikum everyone.
Wa alaikum salam.
So as my dad was saying, today I'll be focusing on exam stress, but I will go over signs of stress in children anyway. So that might be helpful for people who aren't focusing on exam stress as well. So to start with, the plan for today, I'll speak a little bit about who I am and my job, so you guys can have a little bit of information about me, and then I'll move into what is stress, why is it helpful, and then signs of stress, so things you might be able to notice in your children as parents, so signs that there might be a problem, what you can do to help your children. Specifically, that part of it is going to focus on exams and around exams, but if you have questions about other types of stress, that can always come in the question and answer at the end of the session. And then also a little bit about how you might be able to cope as a parent. If your child is stressed, it's likely you might get stressed by that as well. So what you can be doing as a parent to help yourself, and then where to go for support. That's where I'll end the session, and then we can have a Q&A. So to start with, a bit about me. So like my dad was saying, I've completed a degree in psychology and then my master's in psychology and psychological practice in 2021. For 3 years now, I've been working as an assistant psychologist in a hospital, and mainly my day-to-day was helping people who are mentally unwell. And so talking about stress and knowing how to help people with stress, that was part of my day-to-day job for the past 3 years. More recently, I've moved into a personality disorder service, but all of this was in Birmingham as part of the Birmingham Trust. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. So to start with, what is stress? Now, stress is really natural, it's completely normal, and most people are going to experience it day to day. And actually, because it is normal, it's normal to have a little bit of stress. The point of stress is actually to help you prepare for something. So normally people will start feeling this when they're worried about danger. So if they're in danger, they might feel stressed. But also if they find something really, really important and they want to prepare for that, you're going to feel stressed as well. And it's natural. What happens is when you notice these things, your brain will send a chemical around your body, and this causes some changes in your body, and it's meant to prepare you. So it's meant to make you be able to focus a little bit better and be able to get ready to do something. Now, like I said, this is really, really normal. So if your child is experiencing normal levels of stress, this is a good thing. Around exams, it's going to be normal. Around normal day-to-day things, you're going to feel a little bit stressed, and it actually motivates you to do something. So if you notice these body changes, that's completely natural, and it's normal for people to experience this. And you can tell your child that's absolutely fine. It's normal to feel this way. What happens is if you feel stressed for a long period of time and it carries on, then it can cause some harmful effects or some things that can become a problem. And when that happens, it's useful for you as a parent to notice what those signs are and know how to help your child feel a little bit calmer. So in terms of the changes in the body, when you're feeling stressed, because that chemical is going around your body from your brain, it's going to cause changes. Those changes specifically is that your heart's going to beat a little bit faster, you might breathe a little bit more quickly, and what's happening is your body is trying to pump blood around your body to your muscles and to your brain. This is meant to help you focus better, concentrate more clearly, and make decisions really quickly. So that can be really helpful in situations when you're preparing for an exam or when you're going for a job interview. This happens day to day anyway, but it's meant to help you think a little bit better. But because it's also going to your brain and to your muscles, the blood goes away from your stomach and your digestive system. So some people, when they're stressed, they notice that their stomach feels a bit uncomfortable, they might feel a bit sick. It's just because the blood is going to your brain and it's going to your arms and your legs, and it's preparing you. You might notice that you're sweating as well and your blood pressure increases. Again, this is meant to help you. But when that chemical goes round your body over and over again, and it's there for a really long time, because your blood's only going to your brain and to your muscles, it can cause other problems, and it can be hard to rest, and it will cause other difficulties. And that's what I'm going to go into next. So, signs of long-term stress. Now, like I said, it's normal to experience those things in the short term to prep you for something, so something that you might be worried about. If you're feeling stressed for a really long period of time, you might notice that it starts to cause problems. And this is really important as a parent to start noticing in your children. So one of the first things you might notice compared to day, if your child starts worrying about things that they normally wouldn't worry about, so little things that normally are absolutely fine, and you notice that actually they're getting really worried very quickly over small things, then that might be a sign that they've been stressed for a long time and something might be going on. They might also feel very tense a lot of the time, so might feel quite jumpy. You might notice they get startled easily or scared easily, and you might notice that physically their arms and legs are quite tense, or you see them clenching their fists a little bit more. Again, if that's happening for a really long period of time, that's a sign as well that something is up with them and that they might need support. They might report having headaches because of the way that blood is flowing, that chemical, keeping it in your body a long time can cause changes in your head, and that might mean that you get more frequent headaches. Now, I know from my own experience when I was around exams, I started getting headaches quite frequently, especially during exam period. This is really common for children, and again, it's a sign that something's going on. And they might, like I said, have stomach problems, so have issues going to the toilet, going too frequently, or not being able to go enough. Again, because the blood's going away from their digestive tract, they might get stomach problems. And again, if somebody's experiencing that, if they're getting headaches, if they're feeling a bit sick and their stomach is hurting, it's going to be harder for them to concentrate, harder for them to actually be doing exams. So it's important to notice these things and then be able to help somebody through that. So if a child is going through that, it's good to notice so you can help them, and that those things then don't take away from them preparing. You might also notice, because they are feeling sick, they might go off food, so they don't want to have food at all, or they don't really have an appetite anymore. They might not eat as much, or you might notice that they start eating a lot more than usual, having lots of snacks, eating way more than what would be their typical. And you're their parent, so you'll notice that actually this is very different. And if that carries on for a long time, again, that can be a problem. You might also notice that they're not sleeping well. Now, if you're feeling very agitated and tense and your heart's beating faster and you're breathing more fast as well, it's really hard for the chemical that makes you feel sleepy and tired to come into effect. So actually what happens is people around this time really struggle to sleep, and your child might notice that either they're taking a really long time to fall asleep, or that they are waking up a lot of times in the night. Again, that's just because this stress chemical is going around in their body and it's keeping them awake. And you might notice, if you don't notice them actually sleeping difference, you might just notice that they're a lot more tired, they look more drained, and it's again because that stress has been keeping them up. Because of this, you might notice that they're more irritable as well. So that just means that they might get irritated or annoyed over really small things. You might notice if they have siblings that they're having a little bit more arguments with their siblings at that time, or arguments with you. It's just because, again, that chemical in their body is just going to make things a little bit harder to tolerate. So normal things that wouldn't annoy them as much in other moments, you might notice all of a sudden really feel like these really big things. And again, you'll notice there's a difference between how they are normally to how they are. And this might be, I'm talking specifically about exam stress, but you might notice this with other stuff as well. If something stressful is happening in school, it can be any school related stress. If they're being bullied, if they're, something else is happening in school, again, you might notice these signs that something's going on. Actually, they're not feeling too good for a long period of time. When these things all continue, so having headaches, having stomach problems, not having an appetite anymore, not being able to sleep very well, that can affect their mood. So they might not be as happy as usual. You might notice that they feel a lot more upset, or little things make them cry more, or they just aren't as engaged, as talkative as they normally are. They might go really quiet, might not talk to people as much, or might not hang out with their friends as much, or speak to you guys as much as parents. And that's also a sign that something might be up. And then if that continues as well, they might not enjoy stuff that they used to love doing. So if they like sport, they might not be as sporty as much, or if they like doing other activities outside, like gaming or whatever it is, if they just don't seem to enjoy those things, you don't see those things make them smile as much, or they don't seem to calm down or relax after doing those things, that might also be a sign that they've been stressed for a really long period of time. And if those things continue for a really long time, you might notice that they start feeling hopeless. So this one, I think, is one of the biggest signs that something's really up with your child and they might need support. So if they start saying stuff like, I just can't do it, these exams are the worst thing ever, I'm not going to do better, it's all going to go awfully, these are signs that they don't actually have hope that something good's going to happen at the end of the exams. And it's a real big sign that these things are becoming overwhelming. And they might not say it specifically about exams, it might just be generally like, you might ask them a question about their future and they might say, I can't really picture that, stuff like that. That's also a sign that they might be feeling hopeless. And again, these are all really common for people who have experienced stress for a really long time. So that normal healthy amount of stress, which is helpful in the moment to get you to do something, when it gets to long-term stress, when it's been going on for a long period of time, instead of making you feel really energized and have the ability to think quickly and be able to do stuff, instead it's going to make somebody feel like this is overwhelming, I just can't do it, and it's going to paralyze them. They're not going to be able to do it, or they'll really, really struggle then to, if we're thinking about exams, revise or study, and they might just not want to do it because they can't even picture themselves doing it. What we want is that if it gets to this stage where you start noticing these signs, you're able to do something about it to help them through it, help them calm down and make them feel better, so then they're able to help themselves and actually able to do the stuff that they want to do, because this can be really paralyzing. And as my dad was saying earlier, actually exam stress and thinking about school is really common for children. It can feel like this really overwhelming thing, like otherwise, oh, I'm not going to have a future, I'm not going to have these. All these things are normal thoughts for children to go through, and actually being able to support your child and notice these signs are going to be really, really helpful in you helping them get through that process. So the next bit is a little bit about what you can do as a parent. So there's many things that you can do to sort of help yourself. Lots of these are focused around exam stress. Again, if you're thinking about other stresses or you've noticed other stresses in your children day to day, you can always ask questions about them afterwards and I can give you some advice. But one of the main things you can be doing during exam time is making sure your child eats well. So even if they're not really feeling like eating, making sure they have some meals in the day is going to be really helpful. Because even if they don't feel like eating, if they don't eat, then actually it's going to make everything even worse for them, especially what's going on in their body. It's just going to make them fatigue, them feel tired, them feel not able to do stuff. So having something that's giving them the energy to be able to work is going to be really helpful. If they say they don't want like a heavy meal or what they normally eat, you can offer them a light meal. So you can make sure they just have something, even if it is snacks. If they're willing to eat meals, make sure that they're healthy ones as well. If you have too much sugar or caffeine, those things are going to make their heart go faster as well, and it's going to add to the stress that they might be experiencing. So, but if they're not eating at all, then by all means, give them snacks, give them sugar, anything that will make sure they're having something that's keeping them energized throughout. Try and help your child get to sleep. So it can be really common for children actually to try and work a lot the night before exams or the night before something big project or something big in school, and actually stay up all night preparing. But actually that's not going to be helpful because they need to rest. They need their brain to switch off and to relax and to be prepared for the next day. Otherwise they might just shut down on the day, and that's not helpful either. So what you can do is, if they want to study and they want to do more work, tell them to go to bed earlier and wake up earlier and do some work. So at least that way they're getting some rest. Otherwise they might just stay awake really late and then wake up in the morning and not have time then to actually relax and have rested up. So it's really important to actually help your child get to sleep. Make sure that if they are struggling to sleep, that you are maybe trying to think of ways to help them. Another really helpful thing can be giving them a time to work up to, and then saying, okay, now this next hour or so you can watch some TV or go on your phone a bit, and then telling them to go off those things, and by the time it's their bedtime, actually telling them to go to bed. So you sort of wind down naturally, and that way it can help them feel more ready to sleep as well. If they go straight from revising to trying to fall asleep, because they've already got so much knowledge, they've not had time to sort of calm themselves down again. So it can be helpful to have like a wind down process where they're like doing something a little bit more relaxing, even if it's just sitting and talking, or watching something a little bit more that's not related to the exam. That can help them sort of relax as well before going to bed. Another really important thing is to talk to your child about exams and stress and ask how they're feeling. Often children will just feel very stressed and not have any way of letting that out, so they will just hold it and they won't tell anyone. And actually, if you invite them as parents to have a conversation, you don't have to tell me how you're doing with your revision, just tell me how you're feeling. And then remind them actually it's completely normal to feel stressed about exams. These things it's only going to be for a short period of time, and then actually afterwards the exams are going to be done, then you can relax and you can enjoy yourself. You'll be fine, you've been working hard. If you can provide this reassurance and ask them how they're feeling, they are feeling worried, it's easier when they have someone to talk to and let that off their chest rather than just keeping it to themselves. So talking to them about it's going to be really helpful. Another thing is to be flexible about chores, and if they've got a messy room. So normally your children might help out at home and do certain chores and that kind of thing. Around exam time, they're probably going to be so stressed and worked up and also be thinking about chores and all the other things that they have to be doing. Actually, if you tell them it's okay, you don't have to do that during this period of time, or provide some relief for them, then it gives them one less thing to worry about, so then they can focus on that. And actually, because what stress does, it makes you really focus on something. If you're so focused on one thing, it's easy to forget about the other things, and then your child might be worrying about forgetting about other things. But actually, if you go to them and say, it's absolutely fine. You don't have to worry about these things for this period of time. After exams, you can go back to it. That will provide some relief, and it will put one less burden on them. And also, if their room gets messy, that's pretty normal as well. When somebody is feeling stressed or when they're focusing so much on the work, they might not notice that, you know, their room's getting messy. And actually for them, that's providing, like, they know where stuff is. So if that's happening, either offer to clean it for them if they're happy to, or just let it be for a period of time, because afterwards they will clean up. It's just one of those things when you're so focused on something, it's hard to remember all these other things. Another important one you can do is make sure they have a quiet space to study. This can be in the house, but I know for some people who have lots of children, that's very difficult to have in the house, where there's not really a space where you won't hear noise or won't have your siblings running around and that kind of thing. If that's the case, try and help them find somewhere where they do feel able to study. So that might be a library, that might be a public space, that might be a space in school. There's lots of local libraries they can go to as well. If your child is like an A-level student, then some universities also offer during the exam period for children to go into the university spaces to study as well. So you can look that up as well, but try and help your child. If it's not in the home, find somewhere that they can go where they can focus a little bit, and be aware that actually that might be something that's causing them to stress more if there's so much noise in the house or lots of things going around. Try your best if you can, if it is going to be a place in the home, that none of the other siblings or other people aren't going to disturb them while they're focusing, because otherwise that's also going to bring them a lot of stress. And you know, sometimes people find it helpful for that to be that child's own bedroom. For other people, they might find it hard to study in a space where they sleep, because otherwise they won't be able to sleep in that space either. So what might be helpful is to offer your bedroom or another sibling's bedroom and say, no one else go in this room during that time, and they can focus and study in that space and then go back to their bedroom and it's time for them to rest. That can also be helpful. Another thing you can offer to do is support. So you might not be able to help them with specific subjects. That's absolutely fine. But if you ask them, you know, what do you need my help with? Is there anything I can help? For some people, it's practicing questions with. For some people, it might be, can you print these papers off for me, or find somewhere that these can be printed off? If you notice that you can't do anything, if they're telling you, you know, I'm struggling with a specific subject, and you know that you can't help them with that specific subject, you can always ask them if they want you to go to school and speak to the teachers. And that's something that you can do for them. So you can go and speak to the teachers and say, you know, actually they're really struggling in this subject. Is there anything you can do to support with their revision or support them through that process? Or actually they're really struggling, is there work that they can be doing? But again, please ask your child if they want this, because if you don't ask your child, that might stress them out more as well. But that's another thing that you can sort of be helping with. And then one more thing you can be doing is thinking about rewards for revising. So plan these in. This is really helpful, so they have something to look forward to, and it can help somebody get through that period. So if you're thinking about exams, after exams you can ask them, is there a favourite meal they want to have cooked, or something to eat afterwards, or, you know, some family time. It can be watching a movie together, watching a TV show that they really like together. Make sure you plan that in, because otherwise, if it always feels like exams, always feels like revision, that can also be quite overwhelming, and it can make them have all of those other problems that we spoke about before, about like headaches, stomach problems, all of this stuff. So if they have breaks, it's going to be those things that calm them down, and actually planning that in before can give a child something to look forward to. And actually I can do this section of work, and then afterwards I'll have something I can look forward to make myself feel better as well. If they don't have those things planned, it's really hard then to keep yourself going, and exams can last a really long period of time, or that season or preparation for exams can be months and months. And we know that if people are feeling very, very stressed for months and months, it can cause other problems. So make sure that there's some rewards, some happy things that they're doing in between. One of the big things you can be doing as a parent is not adding to the pressure. It's likely everybody actually wants their child to do the best that they can. They know what their child is capable, and that's absolutely normal. You want the best for your child. That's absolutely fine. But I think what doesn't help is if that wanting your child to do well and constant reminders of that is making that child feel like it's an undoable thing. Like, it's too big, I can't do it, I can't reach those expectations. Actually, if you shift that a little bit to maybe encouraging your child, and being like, this is absolutely going to be fine. And especially towards exams, instead of being like, you know, I want you to do this, you have to get this grade, etc. If you think more about like, do the best you can and that's good enough, that's going to help somebody not feel like it's this big overwhelming thing that they can't achieve. I think it's fine to have those before exam season, but the closer it gets to exam season, these are going to be stories that your children are telling themselves anyway, that, you know, actually I have to do this amazing thing, get the best grade, and actually I can't do that. And if the second they start going, I can't do that, it's too big, that's going to not be helping them revise. Some people just give up. Some children find it just so overwhelming that they can't even find the ability to revise, and you don't want it to get to that stage either. So if you're encouraging them, staying positive, try really hard not to criticize them during that time as well. The more you can be doing to be saying like, this, do the best you can, and that's absolutely fine, no matter what, they're going to be done. Especially during exam time, that's going to be really, really helpful for your child, and they're already going to be working really hard anyway, so anything that you can do to support them through that is going to be really helpful. Before exams, reassuring them and staying positive, telling them, you know, you've worked hard to get here, you're going to be fine, it's going to be over soon, it's only going to be an hour. Maybe even talking through the exam process and being like, it's going to be, you know, you have a day of this and then you have a break, or you have 2 days of this and then you have a break. Reminding them of those things can be really, really helpful, so they're not just thinking, oh, it's 2 months of exams non-stop and doing this non-stop. That can feel really overwhelming. The more you can break it down and be like, it's going to be this period and then you're going to be fine, you're going to come home, we're going to do something nice, and then you can go for the next one. And then after exams as well, if something didn't go well or didn't go as well, asking them to maybe, I think this is a tough one, because sometimes children, when they come back after exams, especially if it hasn't gone well, they don't want to talk about it, but encourage them to tell you how they feel about it. So if they don't want, you don't have to tell me about how the exam went, but just tell me how you're feeling. And if, remind them that if they're feeling upset or if they're feeling low about it, it's fine, it's done now, let's focus on the next one. Because what can happen if somebody doesn't feel like they did their best, and often children can be really self-critical, so they might have done amazingly, but because they've been holding so much like pressure about the exam, actually they don't realize all the good things they've done. They've just focused on like the one question that they didn't get and stuff. So because they're feeling so bad about it, then they find it hard then to prepare for the next one. If you as a parent can come in and be like, it's fine, you've done it, you've probably done the best you could do, let's focus on the next one, that can be really helpful for your children then to prepare for the next one and not feel like, oh, I can't do it, I can't do the next one because this one went so badly. And they can really focus on that, and actually helping them focus away from what's already happened to what's going to happen in the future can be really, really helpful. So the next thing I wanted to focus on was taking care of yourself as a parent, because actually it's natural when your child or somebody you care about is feeling very stressed to then feel stressed yourself. So because your child is feeling very, very stressed, and you might notice that and notice all those signs, that's really uncomfortable as a parent to see. And actually that might make you feel stressed. And if you're feeling stressed, it's really hard to then be calm and present for your child and help them, because you're feeling stressed, and you might say things in a way that you hadn't intended because you're feeling stressed as well. And actually for a child, seeing their parents stressed is going to make them stress even more and make them feel even more nervous then about doing the exams or whatever it is they're stressing about. So if you can keep yourself calm, that's going to be a really, really helpful thing. And there's many ways you might be able to do that. One of those things is reminding yourself that exams aren't forever. So that period of stress in the house is going to not last forever. It's going to be over in a period of time. And things you can be doing is praying for your children, making dua. That might help you feel calmer, might help you relax a little bit when thinking about what's going on and how to prepare yourself. And if that's going to help you feel better, that's something that you should be doing. Also speaking to someone you trust. For some people this might be their partner, for some people it might be family members, friends. But remember, there's other parents that are also going through this, that are also having children that are going through exams. And if you can open up to them, maybe people you trust, that actually, you know, my child's going through this, how are you dealing with it? Feeling like you're not alone is really, really helpful. And actually, like I said, with children, if they're keeping it in and not having someone to let it out, it's going to make them feel worse. Same with you as parents. If you're feeling very stressed, having no way of letting that out and speaking to someone and offloading to someone, the problems, it's going to just make you feel worse. So the best thing is actually to try and offload that onto somebody, or just, you know, speak through some of your worries with somebody else and help them reassure you. There's lots of parents that have also gone through the process of helping their children with this, and you can ask them for advice. You know, what did they do? That's also going to help you feel better, more able to manage this and cope with it. And then lastly, obviously making sure to take care of yourself too. It can be easy as a parent when you're stressing about your children to forget about your own needs. So sleeping, eating, making sure you're doing activities that help you feel calm too. Normally people forget this, but actually if you're not doing those things, you're going to be feeling stressed as well. And again, your child's going to pick up on that. So it's helpful for you to make sure you're taking care of yourself, doing all of those things for yourself too, to help your children. So where to go for support? There's lots of really helpful information on the internet, because actually, like I said, school stress and exam stress really, really common in children, and actually stress in general is really common in children. So if you know how to use the internet, if you can get onto Google, these are some really, really helpful websites. So the first one, Family Lives, it talks more about what you can do as a parent, some tips and how you can help your child prepare, or what you can do to prepare as a parent for your children. The next one down, Health for Teens, is really, really helpful for children. So if you wanted to, you could jot that down. But basically it goes into, you know, ways children can prepare, develop a revision schedule, what past papers might look like, how they might structure their revision and stuff like that. Again, this might be something that children might, if you tell your children to go on it, it might help them manage some of those feelings that come up about school stress. And it's got lots of people on there as well talking about their own experiences as a student, what helped them, and that might be helpful for your child as well. If you're really worried, or your child is really worried about school, and they have been for some time, and things aren't getting better, and you've tried the other tips and it's not really getting better, you can speak to the school about this, especially if it's specific subjects. You can ask them to ask your child if it's okay, but you can speak to the specific subject teachers and say, you know, actually they're really struggling with this. Is there any support? Is there any revision sessions? Is there any out of school work that they can be doing? Can they help them plan their revision? Often schools should be doing this, but if they aren't, then you're allowed as a parent to ask and make sure that they get this started. Also, schools have school counsellors. They have people in school that your child can talk to if they're really finding the whole process overwhelming. They should have a pastoral care team as well. So actually, if they're finding that it's not even specific subjects, it's just the thought of sitting exams is so overwhelming, which it can be for some people if they've never sat exams before, and if they feel this pressure of like having to do amazingly, or they don't know what it's like and that thing is causing them stress. You can say this to the school, and the school should be able to provide you support. They can make adjustments even for people who don't want to sit in a room full of other people if that makes them feel really, really worried. If you speak to the school about this, they can test for that, and then they can provide like private rooms for them to sit their exams in, or make other adjustments. They can also, you know, speak through the exam process, because a lot of what people find really scary, especially children, is not knowing what the exam's going to look like, or what that might be like, and just not knowing is so scary. Actually, the teachers can tell them like, it's going to be, you know, an hour in this room, you're just going to be sat, these are the questions you can ask, these are the questions you can't ask. Making sure you do all of those things, that's going to be really, really helpful. If you let the school know, they can start provide that for your children and speak through the process to make it less scary and less daunting. Like I said, you can speak to other parents who've been through it as well. So use each other for tips, especially parents who've already gone through, their children have already done exams. They're going to know what helped their children. Some of these things might work, some of them might not. So don't worry if they don't work, because every child is different. But actually using the information that other people who've gone through the process is just going to be really helpful, because they already know what it's like. And then also, you might be able to connect your child with other children who are going through exams at the same time. Like I said, when you feel like you're not alone in it, it feels a little bit less scary and a little bit less daunting. So if your child can either speak to their school friends, if they don't have school friends, if there's people you know that have either gone through exams, especially if children don't have older siblings or somebody to talk to, they can speak to them and say like, you know, I'm really worried about this. How did you do it? How did you get through it? And actually find ways of managing, and find ways of maybe feeling like, oh, you know, this isn't something that I'm alone in. I'm the only person feeling this way, which is often what children will feel, actually lots of people have gone through this, they felt the same and that's normal, that can also make people feel better. So connecting them with other people who've also gone through exams. I just wanted to say as well, if you notice your child is not feeling better after exams, so you notice all those signs of long-term stress and that's been going on for a long period of time, that stuff is still feeling very overwhelming for them and they're feeling low for a really long period of time, they're not enjoying stuff how they used to, and it's interfering with their day-to-day life. If you notice those signs, please reach out to a GP. And I know there's a lot of stigma around that and a lot of worry around that, but actually, if that child is feeling like that for a really long time, it might even get worse. And then what you don't want as a parent is for it to get worse and get to a stage where it's really then hard to help that child. And actually a GP will know things that might help. They might be able to provide people that that child can talk to or figure out what's wrong. And these are people actually that are trained to help children. So it's helpful if you notice these things and you notice it is interfering with a child's life to actually do something about it. If you're worried as well, there's also Muslim therapists available and Muslim counsellors that you can reach out to. I have some names as well if anybody wanted that. But like alhamdulillah, now there's lots and lots of Muslims that are in this space that are thinking about mental health and are able to support children because it's actually quite common. So don't feel worried about that. There's actually support available for those children that are really struggling. And if you are worried as a parent and you notice this has been going on for some time, please don't feel any sort of shame in actually trying to get help for your child, because all of these things are manageable and your child can get better and feel better about the process. And if it's ignored for too long, you don't want it to get any worse either. So it's helpful to get the help with people who know what to do in that situation as well. But again, that's not for like general exam stress or general stress either. That's only for if you notice these difficulties for a really long time and everything else you've tried isn't helping them feel able to manage. And obviously you'll notice when those signs become that. Okay, that is the majority of my talk. So now I'm gonna go to any questions if anyone had any specific questions. Oh, thank you. Did anyone have any specific questions either about what I've spoken about today, if there's anything that people didn't really understand, or any specific stressful scenarios that they want some advice about? Yes?
So first of all, thank you very much. Really insightful and amazing presentation. So thank you very much for that. So my question is around how are there any tips in terms of having more meaningful and fulfilling conversations with your children, especially if they don't want to have a long conversation, they cut you off.
That, especially if you're not used to having that conversation with your child, it can be really hard, and often you'll find that they don't want to talk about it. So starting small and sort of asking, how are you feeling? That can be a good way to start that conversation. Don't go straight in like, tell me everything. And especially if you try and force that conversation, it's going to make it even less likely to happen. With teenagers especially, this is especially difficult because often they want to keep things to themselves, but actually inviting them to have a conversation about it. In general, how was your day? And the more you do that more frequently, you'll find that your child will open up more and more. I think especially if somebody's struggling, and often children will try and protect their parents and not let their parents know about this, or find it really difficult to talk about, you can let them know that actually, I'm noticing these changes in you. Is there anything going on? Do you want to talk to me about it? I just want you to know, even if they say no, I just want you to know if anything, you are struggling with anything, you can always come to me. I won't judge you. It won't matter. I'm just trying to help you because I've noticed that these things are happening. If you find still then that they aren't willing to talk about it, ask them if there's somebody that they feel comfortable with to talk about it. It doesn't have to be you as a parent. Often that can be really hard to know as a parent, that actually they don't want to tell me anything. But if there's somebody that your child trusts, it can be a sibling, it can be another family member, it can even be somebody at school, a school counsellor or something. Just encourage them to speak to somebody they feel safe to. And if you notice, like I said, those difficulties that are going on for a long time, everything you've tried isn't really working, it's not getting easier, it's not getting any better, then the best thing is to encourage them to speak to a GP about it And often you'll find that if they are speaking to a GP, they are speaking more openly, and maybe offer them the chance to not have you present when they speak to the GP as well, because that will make them feel safer if they are really, really struggling to actually open up about that. Because like I said, they're going to want to protect you in the same way that us as parents want to protect children and not have those, have them worry. Children will often do that, especially with those immediately around them, so their family members. But I think it's very normal to not have these conversations before and for children to feel really nervous. So starting to have conversations, starting to be like, how's your day? Oh, this is how my day was. And then see if they start, the more frequently you do that, the more naturally you'll start building a relationship, and more naturally you'll start building conversations with them. But it is normal for them to initially be very resistant, especially teenagers. So don't worry if that happens as well. Any other questions?
तुम्हें पूछना है फारसी में पूछना है तभी पूछ सकते हैं ग्रार बाइबल
इंशाल्लाह we'll try.
आप उनको कह लें कि किसी ने फारसी में पूछना है
फारसी में हाँ मुगार का सार सवाल दरा परेशान किन
No.
अभी फिलहाल बुरहान का वो बुरहान is in return now, but I'm more stressed about the GCSE
Than he is. That's really normal as well. And that's what I'm saying. It's really important actually for you to notice if you're stressed as a parent, because your child's going to pick up on that. I'm telling you from my own experience, your child's going to pick up if your parents are stressed as well, which can then make it harder if they are really struggling or worrying to then come to you and be like, I'm worried about this. So actually, if you can be doing things to help yourself stay calm through the process, speaking to whoever or doing things that are helping you stay calm, and that's going to be helpful.
Can I add something? Can you advise parents on how to calm themselves down? Sometimes parents expect too much of their children, or maybe they have many siblings, so they expect all of them to have the same grades in exam, or they compare them with a friend of theirs, you know, and they put this pressure on children, which puts them under stress that, oh look, this person is doing so well, so why are you not doing? So that puts the child under the stress, and that puts the parents under the stress that they only focus on the result and not the effort. So like what parents can do, that they can focus on the child's effort, that this is my child, this is what they're capable of. They're not capable of 9, but they can do 5, and this is the best they can do. So focusing on the effort rather than the end result.
I think that's a really good point as well, because I know every parent wants the best for their child, but actually knowing what your child is capable of is really important. And you would have seen them throughout their school process before they even get to GCSE. You would have seen how well they do in exams. And actually kids, when it gets to GCSE level, they're going to be trying their hardest ever anyway, because school is putting that pressure on them, like this is a big exam, this is your future, etc. It doesn't need to be coming from home, it's already going to be coming from school. So actually what you can do as a parent is be aware of, you know, actually they've tried this much, this is their level of ability. Don't put pressure on them to do more than that, because actually if it's impossible for them, they're just going to feel the pressure of that, and it's going to make them do even worse when it comes to the exam. Because if you think about like what I was saying, if you're feeling like you can't sleep, you can't eat, you've got stomach problems, you've got headaches, how able are you then to sit and focus and actually do your exam the best of your ability? You won't be able to. So if you feel that if you notice your child is worried about pleasing you, and actually that pressure is coming from you as a parent, reassuring them is the best thing you can do, because actually that's going to enable them to be able to do their best on that day. And exams are really hard. For every subject you have like 2 or 3 days where you have to perform, and actually the more stressed you are on those days, the less able you are to then actually be able to do your best on those days. So as a parent, what you should be doing is reassuring them, you know, no matter what happens, just do the best you can, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to feel any different about you, and whatever happens, we'll make sense of it. There's lots of people that don't do amazingly in exams. They're not set up in a way that's good for everyone, and that's absolutely fine. People still then have successful careers. I know this is really hard to believe as parents, but they have really, really successful careers. I know people who have gone into law having not done well in exams. I know people who've gone into medicine having not done well in exams. So actually these things, they might seem like really important in the moment, but there's still opportunities, and you as a parent are going to help them through that journey. They're not going to be able to perform if they feel too much pressure. So try your best, like Cora was saying, to not be putting that pressure on your child. Be aware that actually the best that they can do in that moment is the best that they can do, and be proud of them for doing that best. Because actually, you know, for them, they might come from one grade above, up one grade. That's the most that they could do. That's the best that they could do. You should be proud that they even did that. Okay. Any other questions? Yes?
Assalamualaikum, Tanya.
Walaikum salam.
You did really well. It was lovely hearing you. After a long time, I've heard you speak. MashaAllah. So I wanted to comment regarding stress outside of the exam scenario. Especially as you said about teenagers fitting into the society, being Shia Muslims.
Yeah.
For girls, it's separate, being a hijabi. For boys, there are other issues. How do teenagers, you've gone through it, how do teenagers cope with that sort of stress, and what can we do as parents to help them?
I think the best thing is actually connecting your children with other people who are going through the same thing, because otherwise you feel alone and you feel not able to get through it, and you feel like you're the only person going through it, and it can be so much harder to manage. Whereas if you know there's other kids that are going through the same thing, that have the same beliefs as you, then you don't feel alone, and then you don't feel like it's something that is so overwhelming that you can't really manage. I think for me, I didn't actually have many people my age, so I really relied on my siblings to get through that, and speaking to my sisters about it really helped me. And actually, for lots of people who have siblings, that can be a good space as well. You can be talking to them as parents, but obviously it's more tricky as parents because you're not the same age. So I know my parents put me on like camps and stuff, and like spaces where I met other Shia people, and then it's so hard not only just being a Muslim in school, but also being Shia, because even in Muslim groups, you don't really quite feel like you fit in. Some people have different beliefs to you, or they might say things about Shias that are really upsetting. And as a teenager, that can really make you feel like, oh, what is my belief system? Like, why does no one else believe these same things? But actually, there's so many Shias. There's so many Shia kids that are your kids' ages as well. And have like going to talks or going to other mosques, or, you know, going to camps and stuff where they might meet other teenagers and realize, actually, there's lots of people that believe this thing, can make it a lot more easy as well. And I think watching shows, connecting with other people, I think those are the main things that I can think of.
Thank you.
It's okay. Any other questions? I was going to add, actually, there's a lot of, I think, push in our community as well for like Malanas and Sheikhs to give talks to young people, and there's a lot of young people initiatives. I know there's one in Birmingham, but there's a lot of like people who deliver talks for young people about these specific topics as well. Those are really good to attend, or get your child to attend. And if they go to those, they might meet other people, other children, or other people their age that might understand it as well. And it's just nice to have spaces to talk about these things that you might not necessarily understand as a parent, but actually somebody who is a religious figure has already thought about it and prepared and thought about how to deliver that message to the youth and young people. Actually, at university, there's lots of these spaces. So when they get to university age, they'll find that there's a lot of like activities specifically aimed at them about this. But I know they're trying to reach more and more young people now as well. There's talks on TV and programs and stuff that they can be watching as well that will help. Any other questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil faraj.
Thank you very much, Tanya. We've been asking her for quite some time to do this talk, but as I said, this is not the first, and this is not the last. Inshallah, we'll be having some more talks like these. We're already planning to do with the youngsters, to bring the youngsters in and give them a talk about how to deal with stress directly to them, inshallah. And we're planning to do that just around Christmas time, inshallah, in a couple of weeks' time. So there is some refreshment at the back. So help yourself, inshallah.
Anybody wants to ask one-to-one questions, and they can ask as well.
Yeah, Tana is here,
Yeah.
and if you want to come and talk to her in private, in confidential, you can speak to her while we're having tea and biscuits and cakes. Wa Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali